Hello there. I'm afraid if you're watching this, you've probably joined a growing club of people suffering from mould and condensation. Well, in this video I'm going to show you how to cure it for free. Just before we get started, let's look at a typical stain left by a roof leak. This is to help differentiate between a roof leak and a condensation mark. Notice the light brown coloration, almost as if tea has been spilt onto the ceiling. This is a sign of a water leak from a roof or plumbing in almost over 80% of cases. Now look at a mark left by condensation. As you can see, this has a very dark shadowy appearance. If your marks are like this, or the ones later on, it's almost certainly condensation. Firstly, condensation around windows and on glazing. But I'm guessing you've already learned to live with this. In fact, you probably don't even notice it anymore. But if it's at this stage, or this, the chances are you will also be suffering from condensation's partner, black mould. This is a pretty bad example, I know. So let's have a look to see where you might find black mould lurking. Above skirting boards, behind beds and furniture like wardrobes, in bathrooms, at the joints between ceilings and walls, especially exterior walls, also behind cupboards, and of course window frames and window surrounds. Okay, so now we know what it is and what it looks like and where to spot it. So let's try and get rid of it. The first place to start is to understand what causes the condensation. Condensation is caused by airborne moisture. In this example, clothes drying on or near a radiator. The heat from the radiator dries the wet clothing. This moisture evaporates into the air. When this moisture hits any cold surface, it reaches dew point and turns back into water. Let's look at it another way, this time with the help of this handy chart. Starting at the top, let's boil some water for a coffee whilst we look at some of the top moisture contributors in the home. Breathing. I'll admit, this is a tricky one to cut down on, but let's face it, it happens a lot. You get home in the evening and do some cooking, probably with the lids off the pans. Hot baths and showers, lots of potential for steam here. I bet the windows aren't open or open for very long. The old favourite in winter, drying washing indoors. Drying clothing can produce up to 7 litres or 14 pints per day. And finally, just to compound things, the multiplier. Now multiply all of the above by the amount of people you have living in your house. Let's imagine all those invisible moisture droplets hanging in the air. Obviously we can't see them, but if we could, it might look a little bit like this. Millions upon millions of minute water particles, and they're all looking for a cold surface to land on. And when they do, they turn back into water, becoming visible on, say, this window. And this damp environment is perfect for mould to grow, like above these skirting boards, and in this bathroom, and on this bedroom ceiling. Okay, so now we know the enemy, let's beat it. We will be using a 2-stage process. Firstly, cutting back on sources of airborne moisture, and this alone should help 50% of people to either cure or seriously reduce their problems. Secondly, we will look at a simple, low-cost solution to remove any remaining unwanted airborne moisture or humidity in the home by using a dehumidifier. Step 1. You have to reduce the sources of moisture wherever possible. And here's how to do that. Never dry washing indoors. Always use a tumble dryer to dry clothing, either a vented, where the vent blows the moist air outside, or a condensator, which collects the water for you. Unless that is, you're using a dehumidifier. A good dehumidifier can be used indoors as a clothes drying tactic, but more on this later. Always put lids on your pans when cooking. Not only will this save airborne moisture, but your food will also cook faster and save energy. And don't forget to close any doors to prevent steam from entering the rest of the house. Use an outside vented extractor above the cooker if you have one. When showering or bathing, always use an extractor fan, and it may be worth investing in a high capacity extractor fan, as those are far superior. You can even get these with built-in humidity sensors. You can search for these on Google by using the term high capacity or high flow extractor fan. And if that's not possible, open the window and keep it open afterward to allow air movement. Unless that is it's the winter months, where the outside air is also damp. A good rule of thumb is that if you can't dry your washing outside, close the windows. There is no merit at all in letting damp air back inside the house. Now obviously, you can't stop breathing. But as breathing can contribute to up to 4 cups of water per day via expelled breath per person, it's worth opening the windows at night. Once again, only do this when the weather is not damp outside, otherwise you will be letting the moist air in. And if you live where the window is vulnerable, like a ground floor, lock the window into its vented mode if it has one. If you follow these steps, you will have seriously helped to cut your humidity level. Unfortunately, as touched on earlier, most climates become damp during the winter months. For instance, in the UK, that would mean mid-October through to mid-March probably. This can mean opening a window becomes pointless, as the air outside is damp and humid, and it's not a good idea to let it in. Step 2. Remove moisture. Now if you want to take things a step further, a dehumidifier is your new best friend. A good small dehumidifier can remove up to 12 litres or 25 pints of water per day from the air, and the benefits are as follows. Drier air and walls are warmer. This means your home will insulate better, resulting in lower energy bills. Less airborne moisture means you can make the warm and dry air hard for black mould and other nuisances to exist. By looking at the chart to the left, you can see that a 50% humidity level makes it hard for household pests to survive. It's even possible with the right tactics to dry washing indoors without using a tumble dryer at up to 25% of the running cost of a tumble dryer.